jury's reiterating report.
Johnathan, Quiles, day one. Ole. Johnathan Oleas accused of disposing Iyana.
All right, members of the jury, welcome back. You guys may have a seat, of course. We're going to continue with our trial this afternoon, and the state may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Florida calls Iyana Haynes.
Good morning. So you come over here to your right. Just watch your step as you come forward. If you need a glass of water or something, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you.
Thank you.
And you can adjust the microphone as you scoot in to let your voice project. If there is an objection made during your testimony, just let me rule on the objection before you answer the question, okay?
Yes.
That said, state you may inquire. You ready?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. May it please the court. Ma'am, good afternoon. Will you state your name?
My name's Winella Maxine Haynes.
Yes, ma'am. Will you spell your first name, please?
Winella.
Right. And do you live here in Jacksonville?
I do.
How long have you lived in Jacksonville?
About 40-something years. It's been a while.
Yes, ma'am. And who is your husband?
Michael Haynes.
Can you say that one more time?
Michael Haynes.
Thank you. Can you direct your attention, ma'am, to the year of 2018? Were you still here living in Jacksonville at that time?
Yes.
All right. Who is Iyana Sawyer to you?
My granddaughter.
All right. And who is her mother?
Kimberly Mobley.
And is that your daughter?
My daughter.
Yes, ma'am. Can you give the jury an idea of how many children you have?
5.
And how many grandchildren you have?
About 22. I mean, it's quite
Ma'am.
a few.
Now, from your daughter, Kim, do you have another granddaughter, Samaya, SS?
Yes.
Ma'am, was there a time period where one of your daughters, Naomi, was married?
Yes.
All right. And who was she married to?
Johnathan Quiles.
All right. And how long would you have known Mr. Quiles from that time period till now?
With Naomi, about 5 years, but about 7 years in total.
Okay. Can you identify Mr. Quiles by pointing where he's seated in the courtroom, please?
Yes, he has glasses, the light blue shirt. His hair is back. He's right over there.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, may the record reflect she's identified the defendant.
So identify, so reflect.
Gosh, Campbell.
Sir. Ma'am, at the time IS went missing, approximately how long had Naomi been married to the defendant, your daughter?
Probably about 5 years.
Okay. And ma'am, would the defendant be your granddaughter's uncle by marriage?
Yes.
Would you describe for the jury at first what kind of uncle he was to IS and if that changed?
At first, he was a good uncle. At first, he was a good uncle. He was teaching and talking, and he was a good uncle,
All right.
a cool one.
At some point in time, did that change, and was that based on observations you made?
Yes.
How did that change?
As time went on, I walked into him. I'd seen him hugging her. He was like close to a lot of the kids, but he was closer to her.
Okay. And just in terms of big picture, was he around her often?
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
Of course. Just big picture from in 2018, was he around IS often?
As much as I know, yes, it was pretty much by his choice.
As time wore on, did he become more attached to IS?
Yes.
You describe that, please.
When I realized, as when I walked into, I saw him hugging her, and he wasn't hugging her like you would a buddy, a pal, or a niece or nephew. He was hugging her like you would your spouse, your mate, or someone you was in love with.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you just saw. Was that in 2018?
Yes.
All right. And where did that take place?
At my daughter's house, Paula, at one of my other daughter's house, Paula.
And was that at a family function?
Yes.
Was that at a family dinner?
Yes.
And is what you're about to describe take place in the backyard of this family dinner?
Yes.
All right. Was there a lot of folks there at this particular occasion?
At the house, yes, but outside, no.
That was my next question. When you walked out into the backyard during this dinner, how many people approximately were out there?
It was just me and my husband, and then him and her.
All right. And so the record's clear. So it was you and your husband, Michael.
Yes.
And when you say him, are you referring to the
Johnathan? Yes.
And when you say her, are you referring to IS?
I am. Yes.
Is this evening time?
It was.
All right. And when you walked out, will you describe the best you can, ma'am, what your eyes saw when you walked out there?
When he was hugged up, when he was hugged, he was hugged. His hands was around, he was hugged. They was in a full embrace. And when they see me, it startled him.
It startled him?
Yes.
Did he break loose from that hug?
Yes, he did.
Was that right when he saw you?
Yes, when he seen me.
Okay. Was your husband next to you when this happened?
Yes.
Did that cause you some concern, ma'am?
Yes.
All right. Would you describe the type of hug the best you can with your own words, the type of hug this was?
It was like a full embrace, like a full body embrace.
Did it appear to be a hug like an uncle should be giving?
No.
What do you mean by that?
Because usually if a uncle, you hug higher, hug quick, move on. But that wasn't, they was attached. He was hugging her. He had an embrace.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Would you describe this hug as intimate?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Haynes, upon seeing this hug, did that cause you, at that point moving forward, did that cause you some concern?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you do about it once you saw what your eyes saw?
I spoke with her mother. I spoke with my daughter, Kimberly, her mother, and I said it might be a wise thing not to let him be around them by themselves.
And don't say anything she told you, but did you tell her that you were uncomfortable by what you saw?
Yes.
Did you tell her that your position was that he ought not to be around the grandchildren?
Yes. Well, around the female, because around Iyana. And if he did that, females, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Can you give our jury an idea approximately when that happened in 2018?
It was like right when it was around the Thanksgiving, it was in that area, because that Paula's house, my daughter's house, that's where we usually have a big Thanksgiving. Then all the family, we meet there. And we was breaking up. We were dispersing, getting ready to go home.
Okay. And just so we're clear, that would be November of 2018?
Yes.
Now, despite moving forward from that point, and despite telling your daughter, Kim, what you told her, did you notice moving forward the defendant was still seeing his niece, your granddaughter?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
In my opinion, by this point, he knew Kim's schedule. And so Kimberly told him, she was trying to say, don't go around my children unless you get my permission. So he knew her schedule. So he knew when to be there.
Overruled. The defense made a motion, objection to speculation. That objection is denied. You may continue. I don't know where we were in the question and answer.
Yes, sir.
It got fumbled. You may want to restate the question. That way the transcript's clear. Doesn't stop you from raising the objection later on if you deem it necessary.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ms. Haynes, once you advised your daughter, Kim, that the defendant should not be around your granddaughter anymore, what, if anything, did you observe that caused you continued concern?
Because he still would be around her. And I would see her around her. And this was even after her mother told her, but he was still around her.
Did you observe occasions where he was still picking her up from Terry Parker High School?
No, I didn't, because I was in a different part of my life. No.
All right. Were the occasions that you observed them together at Kim's house?
No.
Tell us where you observed them together moving forward.
At his house.
At Naomi and the defendant's house?
Yes.
All right. And did you see that on multiple occasions?
A few, yes. And yes.
Ma'am, as time progressed from that November 2018 time period when you saw the hug, did you learn thereafter that IS was pregnant?
Yes.
All right. And you're certain you learned that after that hug?
After.
Okay. And did that cause you even greater concern?
Yes.
Now, could you give the jury an idea of what was going on around the time the whole family learned she was pregnant? Were they trying to figure something out? And if so, what?
We was trying to find out who was the baby's father.
All right. And ma'am, did you have a good relationship with IS?
Yes.
Did there come a time period after the hug that you saw that concerned you and after you found out she was pregnant that you took her on a walk by yourself?
Yes.
All right. And where did that walk take place?
That was around my house. They all came to my house.
And was that in between the Thanksgiving, November 2018 time period leading into December of 2018?
Yes.
Okay. Was the purpose of your walk to ask her who the father was?
Just, I would like to talk with her anyway, but then, yeah, I did ask her. I'm like, well, is something that will embarrass the family? Because she would never say who the father was. I'm like, so I'm trying to understand why not, but she would not tell me.
All right. So with your question, were you asking her, is it someone that would cause shame and embarrassment to the family?
Correct.
Right. Moving forward from the walk that you took with her, just you and her, did it ever surface in the family who the father was leading up to when she went disappeared?
No, no.
All right. Can you give the jury an idea of sort of describe your granddaughter, IS, what type of young lady she was?
She was very smart. That was my little lawyer. She had other dreams. She wanted to be a surgeon, but that was my little lawyer, because I would see her work her way out of situations, or, like get excused from school, or well, because of this and this is this, and she would present her case until so she was my little lawyer. No matter what her plans was, she was my little lawyer.
Yes, ma'am. Did you know her to be doing well in school at that time?
Yes, she was very smart. She was taking college course along with high school.
Can you describe the relationship between IS and her sister SS?
They was really close. As you know, they was younger. They had their own language between them. They was really close. Some people, if they didn't know one was older than the other, they would even think that maybe they was twins because they was really close. They had a strong bond.
Right. Did you know them to share a room together?
Yes,
All right. Did you know them to be around each other most of the time?
yes,
Did you know them to always get along well with one another?
yes.
They have any major issues between each other?
No more than other children, but they was good children.
Would you describe them as close, like
Yes,
sisters that would share things amongst each other?
yes.
Ma'am, moving again forward to December 19 of 2018, okay? Was that the day that Iyana went missing from Terry Parker High School?
Yes.
Without telling us what anybody said, can you tell us how you were advised of that?
I found out from one of my daughters, and all of them was getting. Iyana didn't come to school. She didn't come home. She didn't come home, and so all of us, I got her from work, and all of us started looking for her.
Let me ask it this way. Were you at work when you learned about this?
Yes.
All right. Where did you go from work the day that you learned she was missing? Where did you go?
To Kimberly's house.
Is that where kind of the family congregated?
Yes.
Was the family searching through her room?
Yes. Searching everything that could give us any sort of idea how to find her. Where was she?
And were you part of that yourself?
Yes.
And I know that was probably an emotional time period. Let me ask you, can you give the jury an idea of the types of things members of your family were looking at in her room? Best you can.
Computers, through her drawers, her clothing, dressers, through her book bags, through her phone, anything that we could find that was hers, we was trying to find it. And her mother was trying to contact her friends. We're just going every way that we could.
And early on, around the December 19, leading into the next day or two, was there anything that led to her whereabouts during that time period at all?
No, nothing.
Was that very unusual for your granddaughter?
Yes, it was.
Has she ever run off like that before?
No, sir.
Now, eventually, the police get involved with the investigation. Is that correct?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you do with the information about that hug you saw about a month prior? Did you ever go tell the police that?
I spoke with one officer. You want me to say the name of the? I spoke with an officer.
If
I
you
think
can
it was
recall.
Milwaukee, and she asked me, did I see anything that was unusual? And I told her about the hug.
All right. And would that be Detective Milwaukee?
Yes.
That's okay. You just mispronounced it. Yes, ma'am. Was there anything else of concern that you shared with the police, or was that generally what you shared?
That was generally what I talked to her about.
And you had mentioned that you received a phone call the day she went missing while you were at work. Where were you working at that time period?
At Northeast Florida Safety Council.
What were your duties there, ma'am?
I was a DUI administrator.
As days wore on, did you continue with your family to continue looking for ways to search for IS?
Yes.
They'll drive around looking at different houses.
Just everything, but they was more involved because they knew more of, her friends. But no, I didn't go as far as that, but we would all talk about it. But
All right. Let me ask you directly, ma'am. These are some tough questions, but I just need to ask you to make sure our record is clear. Did you ever hear from IS again?
no,
Did you ever receive a letter from IS ever again?
no,
Did you ever receive any type of social media interaction, communication with her ever again?
no,
Have your eyes ever seen her ever again?
no,
Is there anything you could tell this jury that would give you an indication that your daughter is alive, your granddaughter is alive, ma'am?
I wish it was something that I can say. I have no idea, nothing, because we was a family that we would communicate, and nothing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. One moment, Your Honor. Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, ma'am, let's start with the hug. When you observed that hug, you said that it was Thanksgiving of 2018. Is that correct?
If that's what's the big dinner we had, yes.
Okay. Are you certain that that's the time period that you believe you saw it?
That was the dinner that we had, yes.
Okay. Do you recall giving a deposition in this case on June 5th, 2023?
I remember giving a deposition when, I don't remember the date, but I do remember
If
giving
I
it.
represent to you that it's
Mhm.
June 2023, that sounds about right. Is that fair?
Okay.
Do you recall me asking you during that deposition when you believe this hug to have occurred?
Yes,
Do you recall answering that it was a year before this case started?
that was in 2018.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So if the case was December of 2018, you would agree a year before that would be late 2017, maybe early 2018.
Then I was wrong in saying that because it was in 2018. Because the Thanksgiving, the walk, our dinner, she's gone.
Your Honor, if I may approach.
For those who just watched, that's Iyana Sawyer, grandmother on the stand.
Ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing you what is a copy of your transcript of your deposition from June 5th, 2023. Do you see that
Mhm.
reflected
Yeah.
there?
Yes,
If you wouldn't mind turning to page, so you do recall giving a deposition?
yes.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind turning to page 7 for me.
Can we go back to the podium for the question and answers?
Of course. Absolutely. And ma'am, if I could direct your attention to page 7, line number 25.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that there, ma'am?
I do.
If you wouldn't mind reading that line for me, please.
Out. Read it out.
Yes, out loud. If you actually, in fact, what you could do,
Well, time out.
I'm going to rephrase, Your Honor, if you don't mind.
Hold on a second. You have something to say, Mr. Skinner?
Yes, sir. Objection, improper impeachment. She's already admitted it.
Okay, just legal basis.
Improper impeachment.
Sustained.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could just read that to yourself, maybe that might refresh your recollection. Do you believe that might do so?
You say read it to myself?
Yes, ma'am.
Not out. Not out on the microphone.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And ma'am, if you could go through to page 8 through line 8.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Have you completed that, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Now that you've read that, does that refresh your recollection as to what you told me at that time period?
Then I was wrong on that time period because it wasn't 2017, it was 2018.
When you observed this hug or embrace, however you want to call it, Did you observe Mr. Quiles in any way touching IS in an appropriate way?
Yes, his hands was wrapped around her body. She was very thin, very skinny, little young, sort of like your size. She was a very thin young lady. He had his hand wrapped around her body.
Okay, was he touching her on the buttocks or in some other private area?
His hand was just wrapped around her body. When I seen him hugging her, I wasn't trying to follow, like, I startled him.
You just thought it was too close. Is that fair?
It was too close.
Prior to you walking out there, there was a big family dinner going on. People, from my understanding, they were leaving out. People were dispersing at that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so people were greeting each other or having final conversations before they left?
Most of the people was in the front of the house. They was going to their cars.
Okay, and when you said it was a big family dinner, you're talking grandkids, aunts,
Yes,
uncles?
yes.
Lots of people were there.
It was all about family, yes.
Okay, and people were all over the house. It wasn't just in one area. They were all over?
We was dispersing. Most of the families was going to their cars.
Okay. And you have no idea the conversation or anything leading up to when you walked out, that all you saw was a hug?
It wasn't just a hug.
From your perspective, of course.
It wasn't just a hug. If I hug my children, it's one way. If I hug my husband, it's another way. It wasn't just a hug.
Right. And you distinguish those hugs based on what exactly?
For one thing, his reaction. When I walked out and I seen him, he was hugging her. He jumped. I startled him.
When you say jumped, do you mean like jumped up in the air? Do you mean they broke apart?
No, he jumped loose. He came loose, apart.
Okay, so more so they broke apart part than physically jumping.
No, I startled him.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm just asking as far as when they broke apart. That's the part that you viewed as startling him.
Yes, he pulled a loose. He broke apart. Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure it's clear.
Mhm.
That's the part that you observed to be startled.
Yes.
And again, I just to be clear, you don't know anything of the conversation that happened prior to that. You only know what happened when you walked out and saw the hug.
They wasn't conversating.
Do you know that?
When I went out there, they wasn't conversating.
Okay, when you went out there, there was no conversation happening,
was
but
not.
you don't know what happened prior to you coming out there. Is that fair
No.
to say?
No, I don't know what happened prior to that, but they wasn't conversating, not verbally.
When you saw them, they were not, but you do not know prior to that, correct?
I don't know. They wasn't, but when I seen them, they was not verbal.
Understood. After that, after you saw that, did you talk to IS about that at all?
Not that, no. I talked with her mother.
Okay. And when you talked to her mom, you said that you did or did not tell her about this hug?
I did not tell her about the hug.
Okay. You never mentioned this hug to her whatsoever?
No, I did not tell her about the hug. Matter of fact, today might be the first time she's hearing about the hug from me.
In fact, you never said anything to anybody about this hug that you observed and felt was so inappropriate until Detective Milowicki talked to you and asked you about Mr. Quiles. Is that correct?
My husband.
Well, you said your husband was there with you, so he also
was
observed
with me.
Okay, so you never told anybody about this hug until Detective Milowicki asked you about Mr. Quiles. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And you say you told your daughter to not let Mr. Quiles be around your granddaughters anymore.
I told her that he shouldn't be around them. She ought to monitor them, make sure she monitor them. He should not be around them by himself.
But you didn't give her any reason why. You
I
just
did not.
told her that generally.
Yes.
There was no further inquiry or anything like that.
No.
She just accepted that as it was.
She started acting on it.
To your knowledge, at that point, she did in fact tell, you were there or you heard her tell Mr. Quiles or whoever that they are no longer allowed to be around Mr. Quiles alone.
No, she said it out, that the reason why I say she said it because he was around her one time. She said, I told you not to go around them unless I'm here. Don't come to my house and get them unless I'm here.
And you were there when that happened?
Yes.
Okay.
That one I talked with her, yes.
And that was when?
That was after, it was like around in 2018, it was between that. Probably in the later, the early of December. It was in the earlier part of December, because I told her Thanksgiving was near the end of the month of November, and I told her, and it was one time he came around, maybe more, but he came around, and she said, I told you not to go to my house. I'm not there without me.
And you were physically at the house when this happened?
No, a lot of time I talk with my kids on the phone and I hear the conversation. I conversate with.
Okay, so this is a
No, I didn't
conversation.
see her tell him. I didn't see her tell him.
You were not there at the house when this incident that you're describing, where you heard her say this is something that you overheard on the phone.
Yeah, her telling him. I told him not to go around. I told him because she was very angry about it.
And you believe this was after Thanksgiving, and on this occasion, you overheard this conversation. At that time, Johnathan Quiles was at your daughter Kimberly Mobley's house.
I don't know he was at her house at that time, but she was telling him she don't want him around here if she's not there. I don't know if he was at her house at that time, because he made it a point not to be there when she was there.
So tell me how you could have heard her telling Johnathan Quiles to not be at her house if he wasn't there and you also weren't there.
I talk with my daughter's on the phone. She was on the phone. One of my other daughters was on the phone. We communicate, and I hear her hollering. I told him not to come to my house if I'm not here. It was over the phone. I didn't see him when she.
Did you ever
called.
hear her say specifically Johnathan Quiles, or did you hear what you just said? I told him not to come here.
Yes, she said she told him not to come there.
Did you hear her say Johnathan Quiles' name?
Oh no, I didn't hear her tell, but I knew she was talking about him.
How did
I
you know?
told John not to come to the house.
Okay, can you guys do me a favor? I know the tension gets high, but I need her to finish the question and before you answer, because we have a court reporter present, and it has to be an accurate depiction of what occurs. So just wait a hot second after the question, then you can answer the question, and she'll do the same thing to you when you respond, when you provide your answer. All right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Michelle, you may continue.
So my question was, did you ever hear her say his name in any way, or did she say, as what you said earlier, I told him not to come over here when I'm not here?
She said, I told John. She don't, that's what we called him, John. We didn't call him Johnathan.
All right. Outside of that, hearing that conversation about this occasion where she said, I told John not to come over here when I'm not here, do you know any of the other information as it relates to whether he had been at her house, whether the kids had been at Johnathan and Naomi's house, or anything along those lines?
Anything but, because I don't want to say like hearsay. I know they all would go there repeatedly. So to say when I seen them anytime after that, I don't remember seeing them at his house after that. Yes, I do.
I was going to ask you this earlier on a direct examination. You said you observed IS, at least, at Johnathan Quiles' house.
Mhm.
Is that true?
Yes, when they moved to Trout, yes, she was there.
Do you know when they moved to the Trout River?
I'm not sure.
Okay, would April of 2018 sound about correct?
I'm not sure.
It was in 2018 that they moved
Yeah,
to the Trout River?
yes, around that time, because I know they told me I couldn't come there.
Okay. After they moved to Trout River Drive, this would have been, and I'm just talking specifically after the time period that you said you advised your daughter to tell them not to be alone with him. Did you ever see any of your grandchildren at Mr. Quiles' house?
Yes,
Okay, you personally saw that.
yes,
Okay, how were you in a position to see that?
okay. Her daughter, Jonathan's daughter, birthday came up, and I took a gift over there, and they was there at his house,
And when you say you took a gift over there,
to Jonathan's house.
and when you say they were over there, who are you talking about?
IS and her sister,
IS and SS?
yes.
And they were at the house with whom?
John was there, and Naomi was there. My other daughter was there,
Okay.
and their baby was there.
And their daughter that you were bringing
Yes,
gift
their
for
daughter.
was there as well?
Their daughter was there.
Okay, was anybody else there to your knowledge?
Just Iyana and his dad, his son. They was all there.
Okay, so there were many family members there when you, on the occasion that you saw SS and IS there were several people there.
Yeah, his father and his son.
Did you ever, at any point in time, ever have the occasion to see IS or SS at the house with John alone?
No.
I want to back up a little bit because I understand that a lot's happened. It's been a long time. Prior to this incident occurring, what was your relationship like with Mr. Quiles and with your daughter Naomi Moley?
I thought it was good. When they first got together, he came to me and asked me, could he marry her? Like, as long as you don't hit her, I raised her, don't hit her. And they was good. I thought they was a good couple.
And did you and Mr. Quiles have a relationship, a close relationship, or a good relationship?
At first, yes, we did.
And did you get to know him?
I just knew him as a son-in-law. I didn't know a whole lot. I used to talk with him, hear him talk about a lot of different things, but.
And did you know him to be a fairly affectionate person?
Overall, yes.
So, for example, would he hug everybody, call them pet names, that type of thing?
No, I don't know about all that.
Did he call you Mama? Was that a name he gave you?
Yeah,
And he called you that?
Mom.
As far as your observations of his relationship with your grandkids, specifically Kimberly Mobley's kids, he had a good relationship with them. Is that correct?
At first, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I believe you, at some point, you said that he taught them boxing and things like that.
The boys, yes.
And would you describe him as a good uncle?
At that time, yes.
She's saying,
Obviously, again, the case might change things, but prior to this, you observed him doing normal uncle things, nothing out of the ordinary, correct?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Even normal.
Is it also fair to say that since this case has started, that may have tainted your view of some of the things that you saw prior to?
Even before this case started, yeah, I started noticing changes.
Okay. Would that have anything to do with the allegations and the accusations that happened around that time that said that IS's unborn child was Johnathan Quiles? The father of, I'm sorry, the father of her unborn child was Johnathan
Could you
Quiles.
repeat the question again?
What I just asked you was whether that may have tainted some of your view of him, of Mr. Quiles. You said yes to that, but my secondary question, follow-up question to that was whether that also was influenced, that tainted view of him, if that was also influenced by the allegations that had been placed out there that Johnathan Quiles was the father of IS's unborn child.
Your Honor, objection, form of the question.
I know she asked her too much.
Question. I was asking counsel to break that up. That's a lot.
Overruled.
You can answer, ma'am.
Okay, actually, one more time, I'm sorry.
I know with the interruption, sometimes it can be hard, so I'll try to shorten it just a little bit. You said that your view of Mr. Quiles was tainted, right? So I'm just asking, was that also tainted because of the allegations that Johnathan Quiles was the father of IS's unborn child?
No, it started changing when I seen them hug, maybe just a little bit before, but when I seen the hug, that's when it started changing totally. It was totally changed.
Okay. And prior to that hug, you had never seen anything inappropriate between them, correct?
No,
Okay. So there was no reason for you to have any suspicions or anything. Is that correct?
no.
So why you said they hugged it funny?
As far as Kamar Humphrey. Did you know about the allegations of sexual battery that Kamar Humphrey did against IS?
I heard about it. And that's all it was. I heard about it.
Okay, you weren't a part of any of that process or anything like that, reporting or anything like that?
No,
And you didn't know him?
no, I didn't know.
Hmm.
And you never observed anything personally between Kamar Humphrey and IS in any way?
I don't even know who he, if I was to see him, I wouldn't know him.
Fair enough. And you said that you talked about a conversation that you had with IS. I believe it was around the same time period that we've been talking about this whole time, in the after Thanksgiving time period. You said you kind of went on a walk with her and talked to her about if this
Yeah.
might bring shame to the family in some way.
Shame. I asked her, would it bring shame to the family?
And did she ever, and you don't have to tell me anything that was said, but did she ever at any point identify who the father was to you?
No,
Did she ever identify Mr. Quiles as the father?
no,
Wonder why.
Did she ever at any point indicate to you anything whatsoever inappropriate happened between her and Mr. Quiles?
no.
Just a moment.
I don't understand it, cause grandmama said that they hug kind of funny. It wasn't no regular hug. It wasn't a regular hug. It was like a hug. Here we go, y'all. With another one.
One moment, Your Honor. Nothing further from the state. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Haynes, good to see you, ma'am.
Thank you.
State, you may call your next witness.
Yes, sir. The state of Florida calls Nancy Ware.
Your Honor. Defense got forms.
Ms. Michelle, do you need your paperwork in the witness stand?
Thank you, Judge.
A strange judge. Strange looking. Now I wonder who this is.
Ms. Ware, good morning, good afternoon, ma'am. Just watch your step over here to the right. You need a glass of water or something, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. You can adjust the microphone as necessary to kind of project your voice in the courtroom. If there is an objection made by an attorney during your testimony, I just ask that you pause, let me rule on the objection, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Yes.
All right, ma'am. State your main inquiry, you're ready.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You introduce yourself to the jury.
Nancy Ware
And can you tell us where you live, ma'am?
in Georgia,
What city?
Columbus.
All right. And who do you live there with?
Me and my husband, Clifford Ware.
All right. And how long have you lived there?
About 15 years.
And does that mean you were in Columbus, Georgia in 2018?
Yes.
Who is IS, Iyana Sawyer, to you?
My granddaughter.
And is that by your son?
Yes.
And is your son's name Willie?
Yes.
Does your son Willie have another daughter, SS, named Samaya?
Yes.
Will you first tell our jury and describe for us the relationship that you have with those two granddaughters?
Oh, I have a beautiful relationship with my granddaughter. We used to get them on the summertime, and I would take them to church and go to the beach and to the park and just have a family time.
All right. Would they come visit with you each summer, generally speaking?
Yes,
And when they came to you for these visits, how long would they visit you?
probably around June till about to the end of July.
All right. And that's typically.
Yes,
All right. And was it generally just the two of them that came to visit you and your husband?
yes,
Would your son sometimes come?
yes,
Anyone else?
no,
All right. And when they would come stay with you, would that be at your residence, your home?
yes.
Yes, that's another transaction that came out of the member's account for $2.99.
Into her account?
Well, it was coming in automatic.
That was my next question. Great. So those three $25 deposits were made from your account
Yes,
to her account?
yes,
And was that done on a monthly basis and or biweekly basis automatically?
yes, automatically on the monthly every 2 weeks.
Now, I noticed you did not stop the $25 deposits after she went missing. Tell the jury why not.
Because I was having hope that someday she'll return back, and it would be soon.
Did you notice any account activity, any spending, any specific charges or transactions that kept occurring after she went missing on December 19th of 2018?
No,
Other than the random recurring charge like to an Apple Tunes monthly
Right.
account?
yes,
All right. Did you see that on this particular month I just showed you?
yes,
As time wore on after she went missing, going into January of 2019 and all the months following, did you ever see any transactions whatsoever on that account for IS?
no,
Now, ma'am, I want to direct your attention specifically to that summer visit between June and July of 2018. Did that particular summer visit end in the early portion of July 2018?
yes,
Okay. And sitting here today, is there any way you can tell us the exact date, or is it just early July?
early July.
Yes, ma'am.
That's just for the record. I'm not being rude by any means, just making sure the record's clear. And as far as her cell phone goes, I know you said that you monitored that until about January 2019, so maybe like a month or so after she went missing?
Yes,
Okay, and then after that, did you guys discontinue that phone number or?
yes, we just continue it.
Okay, and that was something that you and your husband were paying for,
Yes.
for her to use?
Yes,
All right, thank you so much. One moment, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Any redirect from the state?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Ma'am, do you agree that the records I showed you in States 26 would reflect accurately when the Wendy's transaction occurred, the bank records themselves?
yes,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ma'am, good to see you. Have a good rest of your day.
thank you.
State may call your next witness.
Navy Federal Credit Union Bank Custodian Nicole Phillips, please. What specifically does that date refer to, ma'am?
That date is referred to posting date for the transaction.
So working down from date, would that mean that there are 3 transactions that actually posted on 12/17 on 3 separate occasions on that day?
Yes.
And then let's move across the first line, POS debit dash debit card, 7252 transaction date 12/17. 2018 at a Circle K in Jacksonville, Florida. Will you describe that line for us, please, ma'am?
Yes, that transaction occurred on December the 16th, 2018 for the amount of $1.09, which posted to the account on December the 17th, 2018.
Yes, ma'am. So if I hear you correctly, is 12/16 the date of the actual transaction?
That's correct.
Is 12/17 the date that that transaction posts at the bank record?
That's correct.
Now, moving down to line 2, does that mean, for example, in line 2, the posting date is December 17 of 18, yet the actual transaction at Dollar General was on December 14th of 2018?
That's correct.
Will you take us to a Wendy's entry, ma'am, about right halfway down to the second posting date of December 19 of 2018? Will you explain to our jury what that transaction is about and when it occurred, please?
Yes, that POS debit transaction is when the member utilized the debit card on December the 13th, 2018, for the amount of $2.13. However, the transaction didn't post until December the 19th.
All right. So, ma'am, we see that 6 days between when the actual transaction occurred to the posting date. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Is that unusual, or is that something that normally happens with respect to bank posting?
No, that's perfectly normal.
Is there any doubt in your mind, ma'am, that that Wendy's transaction occurred on 12/13 of 2018?
No, that's the date that it actually occurred.
Now, ma'am, moving down this record, I want to ask you, there appears to be some recurring charges. Will you explain, starting in line 1224, I see there's 3 of those posting dates. Will you explain, for example, what those 3 PayPal amounts seem to be according to your review of these records?
Yes, these type of transactions are pretty much something that the member had set up with PayPal to have come out of the account during certain time span of the month.
Are these automatic deductions?
Yes.
Regarding the second entry on December 31st of 2018, we see what appears to be an Apple Tunes transaction. Will you describe that as well, please?
Yes, that's another transaction that came out of the member's account for $2.99. The transaction took place on December the 30th, but didn't clear the account until December the 31st.
Thank you. And the last Apple Tunes, I think it's at the very bottom, next to last line, is that also a recurring automatically charge to this account?
Yes, sir, it is.
And would that automatic recurring charge and that second one taken place on January 6th of 2019?
Yes, sir, but didn't clear the account until January the 7th.
Very much. And then finally, the ending balance of this account was January 15 of 2018 of $43.90.
That's correct.
So, ma'am, that means there were some additions or deposits made to this account. Is that correct?
Yes.
Will you identify for our jury, please, 3 deposits that appeared to be made by one Nancy Ware on December 19, December 31, and then the next month on January 2? Will you
Yes.
describe those?
On December the 19th, it appears to be an internal transfer from a checking account of Miss Nancy Ware for the amount of $25. On December the 21st, there was another internal transfer from Miss Nancy Ware for the amount of, it looks like $17.
Yes, ma'am.
And then another one on January the 2nd, internal transfer from Miss Nancy Ware for the amount of $25.
Thank you, ma'am. And can those be set up by the account owner? For example, here, Nancy Ware, to be done automatically?
No, sir, that's something that has to be generated by that member because Miss Nancy Ware is the only person that can authorize an internal transfer from her own account to that account.
Her own only self.
That's right.
Okay. Now, the very bottom, it says average daily balance current cycle. Can you explain that, please?
Yes, The average balance is just something that's generated for all of the transactions for the total. Out seeing the previous statements because I haven't looked at them in quite some time.
Understood. Now I'm gonna.
Please.
And the records of custodian of records is pretty much like someone who analyzes a subpoena. And we pretty much make sure that we retain records for whatever time span that the subpoena is requesting information for. Once we have all of the collective information, we pretty much provide it to the attorneys, DEA, special agents, or whomever, for the time span in which it's requested.
Now-
Okay, y'all, I'm gonna stop right here because that's really a person that checks her banking account, and when the last time something was withdrawn or added to her banking account. And we're gonna get into that later, but y'all can leave your comment, but you just watched the day one of Johnathan Quiles trial. Iyana Sawyer, both of her grandmothers on both sides testified. Okay.